And I'm also very now pleased to introduce Dr. Segenet Kelemu, the Director of the International Center of Insect Physiology and Ecology. I should say I practiced that because I read over and over again insect psychology, and I said, what is this? No, it's insect physiology and ecology. So please, Segenet, the floor is yours. Give her an applaud.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I was here last month. I'm very mindful of the carbon footprint, but life is always a balancing act. So I often decline 8 out of 10 requests to travel, but there are some people, organizations you can say no. There are some you cannot say no. So, and Sida and Magdalene is among those. So, but this is also a very important topic that I felt I have to come to. So a lot of the issues I think have been beautifully discussed by both Agnes and David, but I will just say more. Some I may repeat to basically also reinforce what has been said. I think having said that also, let me just mention that the issues, the life, the struggle, the plight of the smallholder farmers is not a theory for me. I have lived it. I grew up in a small farm in Ethiopia, doing all the farming work done by farmers across Africa. So this is not a theory for me. Yesterday, while I was waiting at the hotel, until my room was getting prepared, I ordered lunch, a small bowl of salad, Caesar salad. And the bill was 205 Swedish kroner, which I thought 24. I was quickly changing, $24. That is a lot more than what my father earned in a month raising 7 children. So this is, again, everything is relative. Huh? So I think, let me see. Yeah. I think my organization would require me to introduce the organization in the next 2 minutes. I think many of you know already. And SIDA is a long-time investor here, together working with us to combat poverty in Africa. It is an organization that has a little more than 450 staff from 35 nationalities, and annually we receive more than 100 graduate students from across Africa working with us and we have around $45 million annual budget, and we operate also in 30 African countries in many different areas. We work on what we call 4H paradigm, on environmental health, on animal, human, and plant health, and capacity building, as I said, is a major component. But always insects are our entry points. Why? Because insects are really critical for health and for also food security reasons. So no one has mentioned about health when addressing food security, but I'll tell you why it is important to address both agriculture and health together in order to really make a difference in the development goal and the plight of the smallholder farmers. And insects are abundant. They are everywhere. They are the most abundant animals on Earth, actually. And they play both beneficial and harmful things on humans and animals. And they play also among beneficial things. They play a major role in the food web. About 2 billion people consume insects. About 2,000 species of insects are consumed as source of protein. in many countries in Africa, Latin America, and Asia. And they cause also significant damage, both also in crops and humans and in animals. And I think among the biggest climate change effects is going to be on insects. And temperatures get warmer, insects are going to move, and diseases are going to be transmitted both in humans and animals and crops. And I don't know how many of you have heard recently that a new virus called Zika is being transmitted by mosquitoes in the same way dengue and malaria is being done. And what is new in that is that pregnant women infected by this virus that is transmitted through mosquitoes deliver babies with severe brain damage. So there is a lot, I think, we in humanity can suffer from not tackling or being ahead of insects. So I think that's enough, I think. So I think a lot of these things have been already discussed. I think the world's farms are smaller. They also smallholder farmers generate, they occupy up to 80% of land. They produce, as David said, 80% of the world's food. They are also critical for food and nutritional security. And a lot of these farms also, as I think also Agnes has indicated, is also less than 1 hectare. So, and a majority of this, about 35%, are in China. So I have already mentioned that. This is a significant amount, is smaller size. But what was striking for me is what Agnes' data shows, that the sizes are actually going bigger. I always thought the sizes are getting smaller, but I think this could be also variable from location to location. I will tell you why. In some of the countries, sizes are getting smaller, but I will tell you why it's getting smaller. So poor countries, majority with smallholders, are more vulnerable also on climate changes. Is important because there is a heavy dependence on agriculture, natural resources. There is a land tenure issues, I think David has mentioned. There is a low income and malnutrition and high poverty level in these farms. They are often in marginal rainfall areas. There is also low technology, lack of technology and access to it to improve production. There is land degradation, there is a lack of economic diversification, there is poor infrastructure, the poor healthcare system, and low adaptive buffer capacity. So as Mary has indicated, all this makes the food security issue really a complex issue to do. So I always tell my scientists, my colleagues, that when we generate technology to solve some of these constraints, this is good. It contributes to solving problem. But technology is not a vaccine against poverty. It cannot possibly just solve, we cannot possibly solve that. A lot of things have to come together to create wealth and to make sustainable system to uplift the poor out of where the situation. The gender gap. This is really, really important. I think a number of the speakers have said that. A recent report by FAO indicates that if we manage to narrow the gap, the gender gap, that 150 million people can come out of poverty just by closing that gap. Why? Because of all these things. There is incredible disparity among the genders. Globally, but particularly among the smallholder farmers also. So I think Sweden is one of the few countries that managed to narrow that gap. I think we all should be very proud. When I come to SIDA, I see also the power of women and at all levels up there also. I think that has managed also to reflect across the society. So this is really critical. And women and men have different ways of accessing or not accessing able to technologies and so on. Policies affect genders, women and men differently. And I will give you some example on that. One of the technologies I think that we developed, which is a really flagship, a global innovation, and this is Pushable Technology. This is a book which just came out late last year. What is the beauty of it is that about almost 70% of the adoptees of the technologies are women. Why? Because this technology specifically affects women. It eliminates the labor that is specifically assigned to women in Africa, the weeding. It improves soil fertility. It, in one season, it almost triples productivity in maize, in sorghum, in other cereals. It combats pests. It also provides feed for high quality feed for animals. So this is also task. Weeding is always assigned to women. Looking for animal feed is assigned for women. It combats all this, and they know this is for them. And 70% are adopt that. And if you hear the stories in the field, it is really touching how they have changed. I hope Agnes and her team also study the progress of this, adoptees of this, and how their life has changed. A lot of the things, as I said, that insects are consumed in a wide range of countries. So consumption and collection is also affecting the two genders differently. Consumption, they are done by both men and women equally in children. But the collection of insects out in the forest is reserved for women. And we have now adopted since last year a new program to allow them to rear insects of their choice in their backyard, like as if they are raising their chicken. We have also technologies also which is really easy for women that they can do, and that is silkworms. Silk farming is now one of the fastest growing, I think, things in some countries in Africa, and majority of the adoptees are women. So we are really determined to do our best also to focus on women. Adoption of technologies also affects women and men, smallholder farmers in different way. So this is among technologies that we have and product that we have developed in integrated pest management in different fruit and vegetable crops for African smallholder farmers. But what we found is that the men and women, they adapt the different component differently. So if you see, there's a male annihilation technique. That is a very low labor requiring technology, but also they can see how much they have trapped of the insects in the first technology. That one is significantly adapted by women. If you look at the field sanitation, it requires a lot of heavy work, collecting all the infected products of mangoes or fruits or whatever, and then they have to load it and so on. So the women are less likely to adapt that one. So all this then, it comes back and feed back into the research so that we adjust also our technologies to change what they want. So there is also the report, the World Bank report last year, which came out, that if we don't handle the climate change, if governments don't manage climate change, about 100 million people by 2030 would go back into poverty, will be driven into poverty. So the largest impact will be in agriculture and obviously the smallholder farmer. But that the second also effect driver for this also would be health effect. So about, for example, 5% malaria would increase by 5%. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that both agriculture and health have to be done together. And the solutions suggested is the development of early warning system, climate-resistant crops, improve socioeconomic condition, improve health care, and so on. So all these have to come together. But I think today, also, I don't know how many of you have seen, a report just came out by Oxfam. I think we all should be outraged by that. 62 of the world's richest control the wealth of 50% of the poorest, which is translates to 3.6 billion people. And that is, in the last 5 years alone, these 60 people got richer by astonishingly by 44%, whereas the poorest 3.6 billion people, their wealth have gone down by 41%. I think this is really an outrage that all of us have to be upset about. And how long is that going to continue? And that is in the last 5 years that 62 people actually shrunk from 300 5 years ago to 388 people that were controlling, still outrageous. So how long are we going to accept this massive inequality? So this is not good for economic growth. This is not good for any national security. This is not good for any political instability. This is just not good for anybody. So I think with this, let me conclude. Thank you so much, and I appreciate your thank you.
Thank you very much, Segenet. Just one very quick follow-up question. It's very interesting when you say that 2 billion people eat insects, about 2,000 species. And of course, if you would go out to the average Swede, not so much insects.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting example where if an agenda is driven from a certain perspective, or for the North, for instance, we can miss out on major questions, such as, for instance, insect as part of food security. Do you see this challenge? Is it I mean, 2 billion people should be a strong power. Do you still struggle to get this issue up on the international agenda?
Yeah, very good, excellent question. I think it is a question of changing the mindset. I think the health aspect of it is also extremely important. Last year, we published a paper together with our partners in the US, where locusts are consumed in many parts of Africa and elsewhere. Locusts, we fed them on seedlings of wheat. Seedlings of wheat have a very minute amount of sterols that are very useful for our health, cardiovascular things. Locusts, for the mechanism we don't know, they take that tiny amount after they consume that, and they convert it to 20 to 40-fold beneficial sterols. And they manufacture 5 more additional, extremely health-friendly, cardiovascular, diabetes, all those things, compounds, they turn them. So I'm sure the Swedes also would be very happy to have a healthy heart. So they do. And this year we just published a paper which is already taken by the media, where an insect called stingbag, consumed in Zimbabwe largely, they produce antioxidants, very, very useful antioxidants. They take it from the plant and they manufacture it in major quantities. So the health aspect of it is also extremely important, which I think everyone would take.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for bringing it up.
Yeah, okay.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.